Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting for Thursday, November 5th. It is 6:32, and so I will call this meeting to order. The meeting is being held partially remote in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts' March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GLC 30A, Section 20. And we have to do a roll call to order. So we'll start in the Zoom room. If you could say your name, and Sharon, we'll need you to return if you can hear me. But if you can say your name, Joe, we'll start with you and say present.
Joseph Osceola, present.
Thank you. Sharon, I'm going to come back to you. Jackie, we'll go around the table to say your name and present.
Jackie Zebrat-Long, present.
Meredith Henderson, present. Nancy Scott, present.
Terry Russell, present.
Joanne Sheehan, present.
Tina Gaines, present. And, all right, so Sharon, as soon as you come back in, we just need to log that you are here. Right now, she is not here. All right, so approval of minutes from October 22nd. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so Jackie has moved. Nancy has seconded. Any discussion? All right, and we're going to do a roll call approval of minutes. Joe, we'll start with you in the Zoom room.
Joe Osceola, yes to the motion.
Thank you. Still don't see Sharon, so Jackie will go with you.
Jackie Zebrat-Long, yes.
Thank you.
Meredith Henderson, yes. Nancy Scott, aye.
Terry Russell, yes.
Joanne Sheehan, yes.
And Tina Gaines, yes. And Sharon, you've just come at the very end of the approval of minutes for October 22nd. Could you go, do you approve? Sharon, can you hear us? All right, so we're going to move on without Sharon. All right, so that's 7. All right, we're going to now open it to public comment. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes, additional time at the discretion of the chair. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to speak this evening? All right, seeing none, we're going to move into recognitions. Dr. Carpenter.
I have a few. First, we'd like to thank the Special Olympics of Massachusetts for their grant in the amount of $500 to Monomoy Regional High School for being a unified champion school and supporting our commitment to inclusion in physical fitness. We'd also like to thank Donna Lumpkin for her donation of golf balls and tees to the Monomoy Regional Middle School golf team. Lastly, we'd like to acknowledge that Jamie Forger, a second grade ELA special education teacher at Harwich Elementary School, was recently named the grand prize winner of the Research for Better Teaching Skillful Teachers 2020 video contest. She was nominated by Sharon Hughes, the assistant principal at Harwich Elementary. In her winning video, Jamie showcases multiple skills in phonics lessons with her second grade students. Entries were submitted from around the country, and Jamie was named the grand prize winner. Her 14-minute video is now part of Research for Better Teaching's video resource library used in teacher training courses. So congratulations, Jamie.
Wonderful, thank you. Any comments, questions? Sharon, could you, I need, if you could say your name and that you're present so we can get you recorded. I see your mouth moving, but looks like you're on mute. Would be at the lower left corner, I think. Is it a red microphone? You can push your space bar, I'm hearing, from the...
Sharon Stout here.
Perfect. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, good. And so no comments or any questions for... Okay, perfect. We're going to move into Section E, reports and discussions. The first item is donations from Monomoy Regional High School Young Women's Club, and I think we have somebody in our Zoom room to present. Go ahead and say your name, please.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Jones. I am the Young Women's Club advisor.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Libby Dixon. I'm the president of Young Women's Club.
And give us 1 second. I'm going to share my screen with you all.
So tonight we're asking for our monthly donation plan. So we decided as a club this year to use the money that we've raised over the past year and donate it to organizations that we think are helpful around our community. So for our first one, for the month of September, the Independence House in Hyannis, we donated to them last year in the spring, and we really admire how they provide a safe environment and help women and others in our local community. For October, for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we want to donate $100 to Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. We have donated last year in October to this organization, and also, as you see in the picture below with Jasmine and I, and my friend Sarah, we attended their walk last year. We were hoping that we could this year, but obviously the pandemic, we couldn't do that. For this month, we want to donate $100 to the League of Women Voters of Cape Cod in honor of the 200-year anniversary of women gaining rights to vote. And we really think that it's a nice thing to have around in our area, so that's what we want to donate this month to. So also another part of our proposal would to, instead of just coming back each month and asking to donate again, we just want to ask that we are planning to donate $100 each month to a different organization. We really just want to use our money to good use. We wanted to go on trips last year, but obviously the pandemic derailed our plans, but we still want to be able to help our community out. So that's our wish, is we want to donate $100 each month to help for organizations to help others in our community. Some of the organizations that we are interested in, and we will still look into more, is the Hearts Children's Fund, and it helps everyone around in our community. The Safe Harbor in Hyannis, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, who has helped people that our club love, and we really want to help them out. Caitlin's Closet, a weekend in Cape Cod area. The Heart Chapter Food Pantries, and then also additionally to our donations, we also plan to hold clothing and food drives around our school. So that is our donation plan that we are asking for this year.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Good causes and good work. Any comments, questions, anybody? Terry?
Great job, kids. Excellent choices. And I probably in error in your November $100 donation, you mentioned the 200th anniversary of women getting the right to vote. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's 100 years, like 1920, 21.
Yep, it is 100 years.
Yes. What did she say?
So great job. I was,
It feels like 200, Terry.
touche, yeah. It's about time.
Yes.
Time flies.
Anybody else? Questions? Joe?
Not on this topic, but on Mr. Russell's comment, the reverb, I fully agree with the comment insofar as I understood it, but the reverb that I get from here is tremendous. And it's this seems like a second or two time delay, so it seems like three people are speaking at once on the microphone, and I don't know if Sharon hears the same thing. It sounds, or it looks like she does. Mr. Ruska is saying yes too. So we do, those of us in the ZR have a little bit of a technical difficulty here in the reverb that is making clarity a little difficult. So
Joe, thank you. We actually are getting a little bit of it in this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We're getting a little in this room too. So everybody in the Zoom room, if I could ask you this, does anybody in the room have two devices open? Does everybody just have their one device? Because sometimes when you have two, you'll get the feedback.
Charles says he does.
So everybody's, all right, so I don't know where it's coming from.
Seems to be only coming when they speak.
Yeah, it's only, that's true. It's only coming from when somebody speaks in the Zoom room, so we're not sure if it's something linked, unless we put everybody on mute just to see what happens. But I think it's when somebody there speaks.
And Teeny, we're hearing you just fine. It was others in the room
Oh,
that were a source of just difficulty in comprehending what you had to say. But you're coming through loud and clear.
okay. Does everybody have their mics on? Okay. I don't know what it is. We will continue to work on it. And I will repeat as much as I can. Nancy?
I was going to jump back to talk about the Young Women's Club.
Yes, please.
I just want to say that is, what you guys are doing is spectacular. Most clubs, they raise money for themselves, and I know you guys do raise monies for your trips and such, but to have such a goal to raise money and raise those funds and donate monthly, I think is incredibly selfless and powerful for you to be just looking outward into the community and making sure that you're focusing most specifically on our local areas instead of even going broader into other women's groups, but focusing in what is such a strong need in our area. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon?
Yes, I echo everything that Nancy just said. How many, I may have missed it, how many are there in the Young Women's Club, and what is it that you do to raise this money for these wonderful causes?
So this year, we did lose a lot of members, and we are trying to gain people, but it's kind of hard to reach out with the hybrid schooling. Right now, we have 4 officers and around 3 members. Last year, we had around 10 members. And luckily, we restarted our club. It kept falling through for a lot of years, and this last year we finally got it re-going. So luckily we already had some club funds, but we fundraised through bake sales a lot. I think that was our major source of fundraising, was through bake sales at grocery stores, and we were very successful with those.
Thank you, Libby.
I think that is absolutely wonderful, and I would just recommend that when you're doing these bake sales that you put a donation bucket, because lots of times I don't want the extra calories, but I'd be happy to donate. Thank you. It's lovely.
Great. Anybody else? Nancy?
I think we need a motion.
Yes, we do. And I just want to say before we take the motion, Jasmine, thank you for advising. And Libby, thanks for stepping up to be the president. Is that your official title?
Yes.
Wonderful.
I was the co-president last year, and now I'm the president.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your good work. All right, so we any discussion, any other questions? All right, so the motion, Nancy?
I move to accept the donation request as presented by the Monomoy Regional High School Young Women's Club.
Perfect. A
I
second?
would second that.
All right, seconded by Terry. Any discussion? All right, we're going to do a roll call vote. We'll start in the Zoom room. Sharon, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Joe?
Go Osceola, aye.
Thank you. Jackie?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Joanne?
Aye.
And I'm a very enthusiastic aye. Libby, thank you very much for all of your hard work. Jasmine, again, thank you for your leadership and leading and advising this club.
Thank you all for having us.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night. All right, moving to the next item is the FY21 Quarterly Finance Report. Michael?
All right, good evening, everybody. Just very quickly, I circulated as part of the meeting papers a short note outlining our current financial position. So in summary, although, obviously it was a rocky start to the year from a budgeting perspective, because we came into a very different environment than had been envisaged when the budget was first being developed. We seem to be we are in a good position now. A lot of the additional expenses we have seen due to the remote learning and the other impact of COVID-19 has been offset by grants we've received from the state, not in its entirety, but to a significant portion. And we're also in the process of submitting a reimbursement request to FEMA, where the federal government has made funds available for that as well. So I've included the expenditure report, which shows where we are in relation to our budget. We have around 8% of our budget unaccounted for at this point. That just means it's been either unexpended or unencumbered, which is slightly higher, but similar to the same place we were in at this point last year. And in our revenue is similar again to where we were last year. It is slightly up, it's up in relation to school choice, but that's largely just timing because we receive a set number of installments from the state, and we've received one more than we had at this time last year. And so then, I mean, there's more detail in this note, and I think these numbers will change as we get the grants, as the grant funding is received, and also the FEMA reimbursement. We have some, once we get clarity on that, we'll be able to firm up some of the numbers in terms of what expenditures come out of the general fund versus what's coming out of these other funds. But all in all, I think we're in a reasonable position right now.
Great.
Any questions?
Any questions? I know you've just come from the Finance Subcommittee,
Yeah, it's
so
non-stop.
you have a good...
Non-stop fun.
Yeah, all good fun. Anybody have questions for Michael? Sharon, Joe, anyone? I think we're good, Michael.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Michael.
All right, next item is School Committee Goals Regional Agreement Workshop. So earlier this evening, Joanne had cleaned up what we voted on last time with a couple of edits. So you'll have a clean version of the school committee goals in your email. And one of the items, the number one item, I believe, I actually did print out and bring the copy, is meet with the attorney to discuss DESE's response to regional agreement. And in order to complete that, we have scheduled a workshop that will happen on Monday. All of you know about it. And I've already sent the agenda. It has been posted. So that's going to be Monday evening from 6 to 8. We'll have our attorney with us. The superintendent will be with us. It's purely educational, so I want to make that very clear. It's an educational workshop. Particularly, Meredith and I are still, believe it or not, still a little bit new. And so it gives us a chance to really understand the agreement, where we are with it, and then DESE's response. And so just plan on 2 hours on Monday evening for our Zoom workshop. And then we will see whatever comes out of that for recommendations from our attorney. That will be on our agenda for the 19th for discussion and a vote. Any questions, comments? Anybody in the Zoom room? Okay. All right, moving to the next item. Second public comment, and this is a potential vote, so we will see kind of what comes out. So I guess for the past 3, 4, 5 meetings, it feels like, we have discussed the policy, which will be coming up under subcommittee reports, and we did agree to bring that back for a second reading. But it was requested at our last meeting to pull out the second public comment and have a discussion about it. So I am going to open it up for anyone who feels like they would like to say something in support or not that may or may not have already been said. If you want to emphasize something, please do. Anything new? Terry.
Very briefly, I think for the sake of one of our roles of openness and transparency and a listening ear, I would strongly recommend that we vote to have that second public comment, because, simply put, I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody in the Zoom room? Sharon.
Yes. So I was raised here on the Cape, and all the time that I went to school, my dad was principal, and all the time that I was working in the schools, it was an era of where we were public servants. And since this is a public school, paid for taxpayer dollar, I've just seen it as our responsibility to hear what people have to say. I do understand that this is our meeting, and we do have an agenda to get done. And so I think if we could just hold people to a certain time, and we do rarely have people speak, to me, the beginning where people can make comments or ask questions and something at the end makes a lot of sense. So I very much support that.
All right, Sharon, thank you. Joe?
Well, I oppose maintaining the second round of discussion because we are hearing people. We are hearing what they say. In fact, every 2 weeks, we take a public opinion poll and we say, public, do you want a second round of discussion? And the public says no. We're not interested. We don't want to participate. We're not involved. Thank you very much, but no. And then the next week we say, public, do you want a second round of discussion? And the public speaks by lack of interest. They say no. They don't come. It's not something that they want. So, keeping in mind that the school committees are organized or run by state law. The state law, first off, is clear. Just to establish a baseline here, the state law is clear. The state law says that the public expresses itself at the ballot box in the elections. That's how the public determines its will during the elections, the people that they vote for. Now, in addition to that, the law does allow us to have public comment. It's the recommendation of the Attorney General that we should have one. MASC suggests we have one round of public comment at the beginning of the meeting, and I think we should do that. I'm sorry for the voice here. And by the way, are you hearing okay, or is this
Yes.
reverb? Should I
Nope,
speak
you're very
more slowly
clear.
here? Can you hear okay?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We're okay?
Yep,
Okay.
you're good.
Well, consider this. In a week or so from now, in a month from now, 2 months from now, an item is going to come up. An item is going to emerge from the, let's say, policy subcommittee. The item will be on the agenda. The specific text will be attached to the agenda, and a member of the public can speak to that prior or at the beginning of the meeting. If we remove the second round of discussion, the member of the public can also speak at the subsequent meeting, because we wouldn't be voting in the first meeting. We'd have discussion and we'd have our vote possibly at the second meeting, perhaps even at a later meeting. So a member of the public interested in that item on a hypothetical policy issue can speak twice to the school committee about his or her opinion. They can also send an email to the school committee about his or her opinion. Now, that's 3 strikes. That's 3 attempts at bat. It seems to me that is quite sufficient and quite in keeping with what we should do to have a proper and adequate connection to the public. And then finally, my last point on this, and I kind of suggested or hinted at it further, on the second round of discussion, frankly, I've heard very little, but most of what I've heard from half a dozen or so people has been negative and critical of us as a school committee. I think at the last meeting, someone asked, well, what are the public relations issues involved in removing a second round of discussion? There is actually a public relations issue, and it's not that the removal is a problem, it's the maintenance. And the argument, if I could pull it together, essentially comes from different sources, but the argument is essentially, you school committee members, you have created a special position. You have created a position of special advisor to the school committee, where an interested individual has a platform to speak. And you school committee members allow this, encourage this, sometimes ask an individual to speak because he is a friend of the school committee. You like him, you like his opinions, and you school committee folks have created this opportunity that gives a kind of megaphone or enhanced voice or an enhanced platform to one person. Would you do this if someone was saying things that you disliked? Would you continue that way? And that's the only public relations argument I've heard. I think the criticism is unfounded. It's not what at all what we intended when we voted. It's certainly not what I intended when I voted, so to speak for myself. I think it's unfounded, but yet the fact is that we've gone about a year from now, and the public has shown no interest in having a second round of discussion. And to the extent that we do, there is more criticism than there are people who have used it. Although by and large, the numbers in both cases are minute. I think really just common sense tells us the public can express itself at the beginning of the meeting, corresponding in emails and so forth. The public has more than ample and appropriate amounts of opportunity, numbers of opportunity to address the school committee. And I think we should concur with the MASC resolutions or recommendations and the Attorney General recommendations. One round of discussion, preferably at the beginning of the meeting, and more time granted as the chair sees fit. If we do that, I think we have served our public well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Terry.
Very briefly, throughout the Commonwealth and in this district, we have a 911 number that you can call if you have a need. I've never had to call it. I still think it's a good thing.
Knocking on wood for Terry.
Thank you, Terry. Anybody else? Jackie.
Are we making a motion tonight, or?
It says potential vote, so that is up to us. If we feel like we want to vote tonight, we can, or we can bring this back to the next meeting.
I don't think we need to bring it back to the next meeting, so I think at this point, I'll offer a motion, if that's appropriate.
That will be fine. I'm going to make a comment before you do, if that's okay.
That's fine, yeah. Or you can make them, whatever.
Oh, I think the chair, I'm not sure I can. But I'm going to say two things. And I stated this last meeting, and I'm going to say it again. I honestly can go either way on this. And because there's part of me that agrees with Terry. I don't think it harms anybody to have it sitting on the agenda, because like the 911, it's there if we need it. On the other side of this, I agree with Joe, because I actually went back and looked at our meetings. I took time to do this. And the motion was made on October 24th for us to, let's see, we introduced the second public comment on October 24th, 2019, and had a good discussion. We put it on the agenda on November 7th, so we're almost a year here, to bring it back and look at it. And I went back just out of curiosity, and Joe is correct, 2 people have taken advantage of this in an entire year. And one of those 2 people have only been to the podium twice. And I have a background in public relations. I absolutely believe in giving the public an opportunity to speak. I think we do a good job of that in the first section. I also have looked at other committees and boards. I chair committees and boards. I have yet to find anybody with a second public comment. I was looking at the Senate and the Congress and looking to see do they bring people from the gallery down to have public comment. So I was kind of taking all of this into consideration, and I was wondering if we got a wave or wind that the public needed to speak. I think we could call a hearing if we needed to. I think we had a community forum last year when we got a good feel that people had concerns, and so we called a forum. And I started thinking from a public relations perspective that that might be a better way to go. If we see that people have concerns, if we're getting letters, because we all get emails and letters, if we see a trend or a concern, I think at any point we can call a hearing, we can call a community, forum, where we can actually really sit, and our whole purpose is to just sit and listen. And I haven't seen evidence, at least in the public comment, and this is, I really have gone back and forth on this, because I agree with Terry, it doesn't hurt anything to have it on there, but in a year, we've had 2 people. So, and I am not attached, to be honest, I'm not really attached either way, but I think those are the facts, as I can see them. So, Nancy.
I actually was not going to speak tonight until I had rumblings in my own brain, and then you actually said what I was thinking, was the fact that it hasn't been used. Does it hurt being there? No. And why do we have it on there if it's not being used? It would be more practical to have a situation, if a situation arises and we deem it necessary, then we should have the opportunity for the public to speak. So I just wanted to concur with you, because I actually had a very similar thought, and I feel like my telepathy went to you or something. I'm not sure, but I just feel like it's not a all or nothing situation. I feel like it's a as needed basis per se.
Okay, Terry and then Jackie.
At the risk of belaboring this point, it's, to me, a no harm, no foul. That I have a spare tire in my car. I've never used it, and yet it's there. I have spare batteries at home for smoke alarms and for anything else in the house. Usually never have to use it except it's there. The same analogy holds true with a harmless, and the fact that 1 or 2 people have used it all year, to me, that's a compliment. That the need is there, you present it on paper that it's there, and life goes on. If no one comes, it's not because they could care less or they're disinterested. There's a level of trust. So, with that said, that will be my last comment, and I would move the question.
Okay, well, before you move the question, Jackie had put her hand up. Did you have a comment, Jackie?
Well, I was just going back to after letting you talk.
Oh, you were going to move the question. Okay. If you don't, Sharon, did you have a comment before we take a vote?
Point of order?
What,
I'm
made a
sorry.
motion.
But there's no move the question, because there hasn't been a question been,
Okay,
there's no motion been moved.
okay, thank you.
Because you didn't let me talk.
Okay.
I had
Sharon?
my hand up. So, I totally agree with what Terry had to say, but I would just say, I don't know in Chatham how it works at the selectmen's meetings, but I do know in Harwich what happens at the selectmen's meeting, and I find it helpful. And in that case, there are a whole lot of people that come and speak, and they speak maybe at the beginning. When any topic comes up, they can speak at that topic as long as they're recognized. At any point, they're a member. I'm not advocating for us to do that, but I'm just saying that that is what the people of Harwich are used to doing at a public meeting. We're more like the Finance Committee than we are the Selectmen's meeting than we are about many of these other committees. And so I guess I just would end that there's no harm and maybe goodwill, at least, maybe even good sharing of information if we left it at 2.
Thank you, Sharon. Anybody else? And Sharon, I'm not sure if that's the case, though, with Harwich. I think there have been some situations where the chair has invited comment, but I don't know that I don't think that's a standard practice every meeting, only because I've gone to many meetings. But I hear what you're saying. Anybody else? All right. So would somebody like to move? Do you want to make a motion tonight?
Well, I was gonna, yeah, sure. Okay. So am I allowed to talk first, or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, we're still in discussion.
Okay, all right, and then I think we can just move on. It's really interesting to me that this all came up actually because of the policy we've been working on, and that it hadn't been a topic we'd been discussing, kind of was a moot point, just kind of we were existing with it, and I think it's ironic that with the agenda that it's been a year. And what I find most interesting about the policy bringing up this topic is that it actually was on all of our minds, and we hadn't been talking about it. And obviously, there are clear opinions about it. And so I think that's been really great to talk about. And it's just interesting how things come up and how they come up. That being said, I keep feeling at the end of all these meetings when we discuss this being on or off the agenda that from my perspective, that it's the discussion gets heated, and then it makes it seem as if those who want to remove the second public comment is that we are not open-minded, that we're not friendly to the public, that we don't want to hear from anyone. And I don't think that's necessarily it. I just think there's different perspectives of how a governmental body, a meeting runs professionally, and how it's organized. And I think we were lenient, and I think there were great reasons on why we added that second public comment, and we've learned from that. And for me personally, I think that we have various ways for the public to communicate with us. But I don't want to steer away from being wrong. I'm not wrong for wanting to stay organized and simplifying our agenda, and having the school committee members who are voted officials run their meetings. Because I feel, and I think Joe touched on it a little bit too, that sometimes you're an elected official and you want to hear from the public, and there's various ways to do that. And when we do that, we bring that to the meeting. It's on the agenda. It's someone brings it to public comment. It's in a presentation. It shows up in various ways. And I just feel that we need to have the school committee members run the meeting. And I think that tone has changed a little bit. So I think that's part of why I want to hear from the public. And like I said, there are many ways for that to happen. And why this got blown up into such a topic is very interesting. People have strong opinions about it, but I think at this point I'd like to make a motion to remove the second public comment.
Before I'm going to intervene, just because I want to just say one more thing that you reminded me of.
Yeah.
We did at one point talk about clarifying questions. So I want to clarify. I actually did some research along Leah and I about open meeting law, because I think back a couple of meetings ago we were talking, or in policy we were talking about clarifying questions as being a reason to keep public comment for the second one. And in my research with the open meeting law, it's my understanding that if somebody gets up and asks a question that does not tie to the agenda in some way, and somebody gets off track with it, we could be in violation of open meeting law. So that is a little scary, and I don't think any of us want to put ourselves there. Because I originally thought, well, if we have the second public comment as a place to ask clarifying questions, that might be a helpful thing, but we could have ourselves in violation. So I thought, okay, well, we can't do that. So I wanted to say that because I know that there was a feeling, too, that we could use it for clarifying questions. So I felt like I needed to clarify why we can't do that. And I'd like to think that I could trust everyone in this room, and even trust somebody at the mic. If we get off on a topic somehow, we could get in a lot of trouble. So that's real important. So anyway, Jackie, back to you.
So I'd like to make a motion to remove the second public comment from our agenda format for the remainder of the,
2020,
2021 school, or we want to say school committee term.
Okay, so you made the motion. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, Meredith is going to second. So the motion on the floor is to remove the public comment with the next meeting, or?
The motion was to remove the public comment in the second position, the second public comment from the agenda format through the end of the
Okay.
2021 school committee term. Leah?
Is that through the chair's term, or are we talking, just to be clear?
We can
That's a
do
good
through the
point.
chair's, through the chair's term.
So
That
the-
sounds good.
All right, so the chair's term would be, I think, the first, it's early May, right? If we're back on track, I have no idea. You know, we'll wait and see. All right, so through the chair's term. Okay. So we have the motion, and then we have a second. Any other discussion?
Just,
Yes,
Madam
Terry?
Chair, why not just eliminate it? What's going to happen at the end of every year we'll bring this up?
That's a good point, Terry.
I thought it was, that's why I said
It's a good point.
it. So let's have a vote that's clear.
Okay.
Either it's a profitable thing to do for the public, or it's not.
Okay.
Do you want me to amend my motion?
I would say
So I'm amending my motion to remove second public comment from the agenda format.
period.
Second.
All right, so Meredith is going to keep her second, so it's amended. All right, so that is the motion that we're removing it. All right, you got it, Leah? So now we're going to take a vote to remove it, and we'll start in the Zoom room. Sharon, we'll start with you, and the motion is to remove the public comment, period.
No.
Second public comment, sorry. Yeah, we don't want to remove the first one, sorry. This is second public comment.
I'm voting no.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Joe Osceola, yes to removing second public comment.
Thank you. Jackie?
Jackie, yes?
All right, Meredith?
Meredith, yes.
Nancy?
Nancy, aye.
Terry?
No.
Joanne?
Yes.
Oh, this is hard. I'm going to abstain because I'm not attached. I'm not attached. So I'm going to abstain.
So 3 to 2, so 3 yes, yeas, and 2 nays and an abstention.
Is that adding the half votes?
Yep.
Any questions? Joanne, did you have a comment?
No.
Making a note.
With behalf.
Oh, yes. So that was a 3 to 2 motion, passing or failing?
Pass to remove.
Okay, all right, so it passed to remove. Okay, so now we move into subcommittee reports. Section F, second reading, policy. And this was on our agenda last time and several times before that. In your packet, we have the version that we agreed to last time to bring back. There were 2 changes last time. And it's on page 4 at the bottom in red. Because Nancy made a motion that we accepted last time. There shall be at least 1 public comment, at least 1 public comment period for each public, and then it reads up to 5. And then the other edit we made, both edits are in red, under number 3. Joanne had recommended her discretion, just making that clear. So those were the only 2, and we did vote to bring this back based on those 2 edits for a second read. Nancy?
I move to approve the school committee policy file BE, Bravo Echo, school committee meetings.
Second.
All right, so we had the motion by Nancy, and we had a second by Jackie. Discussion, please. Joe?
Madam Chair, I have been similarly motivated as you to dig in and do a little research on these questions. And for better or worse, I would, and I think in this instance for better, the section that we have amended, which pages 4 and 5, the 6 points that are on those pages, frankly, that comes out of MASC and reflects their thinking and judgment. I don't see it as a particularly controversial point at all, and I think it's well stated. I think we're ready to settle this issue. I'm in favor of the draft, and I urge others to vote in favor of it.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any other comments on the policy? All right, so we have a motion and a second, and now we're going to vote. This is in favor of accepting the meeting policy, and we'll start in the Zoom room. Sharon?
I'm voting no because of the elimination of the second comment.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Yes, in favor of the motion. Joe Osceola.
Thank you. Jackie?
Jackie, yes?
Thank you. Meredith?
Meredith, yes.
Nancy?
Aye.
Terry?
No.
Joanne?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. So that would be 6 ayes and 2 noes. All right, so the policy passes. And we're going to move into the second reading of the superintendent goals. And then we discussed this last time. And Joe, were there any, I'm trying to recall, were there any edits or anything that we need to kind of refresh our memory about?
No, we had no recommended edits, either from the Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee or from the school committee as a whole. And it was the consensus of the subcommittee that we urge the school committee to adopt the superintendent goals for 2020-2021, and I urge you to join me in doing so. So I'd make a motion to that effect, and I ask for a second.
All right, so Joe's moved on that we accept the superintendent goals 2020-2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Joanne seconds. Any discussion? All right, so we're now going to take a vote in favor of approving the superintendent goals. Sharon, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Okay, Joe?
Joe Osceola, yes, aye.
Thank you. Jackie?
Aye?
Meredith?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Joanne?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So that's unanimous. Thank you. Now we're going to move into the first reading of the policy file BDG, school attorney. Sharon, as the subcommittee chair, can I ask you to lead us in this?
Yes, we made the adaptations recommended. Scott had suggested that we make plural attorney and law firms, since we have a special ed and a regular school one. And then I believe it was Jackie that recommended that we add or designee after superintendent throughout. And those are the only changes.
All right, thank you. So all the changes are in red as noted from our last meeting. Could I have Jackie?
Just a couple things. I think the first sentence, the committee will retain attorneys and law firms to provide additional legal service.
So you're wanting and instead of or. So an attorney or attorneys and law firm or law firms? Is that what
I
you're?
misread your edit, and that's the edit that I have.
Okay.
That the committee will retain attorneys and law firms to provide additional legal service, because I believe there was a conversation that there would be possibly more than one law firm. I feel like it, I don't know if it had to do with the superintendent, but that's what I had for the note. If you guys don't agree with that, that's fine, but that is what I had for the note. And then my second was that, on the last paragraph, the end of the first sentence where it says, or prior notice, that I believe Joanne wanted a semicolon.
Oh.
Oh, and then,
And tell- and
So
what was the
committee
semicolon?
approval or prior
Dr.
notice,
English.
so semicolon after
Semicolon.
notice, and
Oh, and then
however,
Oh, that
however is a lowercase
yes, I do
lowercase
remember that.
h. And I apologize because I missed that in my
Okay,
edit.
that's okay. I think those are kind of minor, but Nancy?
I think to clean up what, Jackie, you were saying in the beginning.
Yeah.
You could say the committee will retain an attorney, parenthesis S,
Yeah.
and/or law firm, a parenthesis S.
Yeah.
I think that would accomplish.
And/or law firm, yes, perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
That way you're doing not so many ands and ors and ors and
Yeah,
ands.
I think that's what we had, and somehow, yeah, I think
And
that's
then-
what we had.
And then I have a question after that.
Okay, was
I
that
do
your
too.
only edit, though? Just
Yes.
that? Okay.
I was just thinking that that would clarify it.
I had another edit.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I also had a note that they wanted more clarification in this last paragraph, but maybe you guys decided you didn't need it, so.
I think, if I'm remembering, in our committee, I had the clarifying in paragraph 2, but we could not recall what the clarification was.
That was requested?
Yes.
I don't have a note of
And I
what
had
it
it
was.
as paragraph 2.
I had it as the last paragraph
Okay.
also, but
All right,
if folks are okay with it, then.
yep. Anybody, Nancy, you had something else? Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to make sure that it was a question that we talked about, and maybe this is where the clarification was if something comes up that is timely, that the chair would be best to contact the attorney prior to a school committee meeting and being able to get together so that the chair could bring the information from the attorney to a school committee meeting, i.e. an open meeting law violation. Something comes up, we receive the violation, we have a time frame that we have to get back to. We want to be able to contact the attorney prior to a meeting with the school committee. Therefore, the chair needs to be able to reach out to the attorney without the committee's approval. So I want to make sure that that can happen. And I don't know if it could fall under the fact that says flat out, the superintendent or designee may take such action at the discretion, at the direct,
When the superintendent?
I don't know. I just want to make sure that that is legally allowed with this policy, and I don't know, maybe it's not. Maybe that's not something that's allowed to happen. But I feel like that would be a situation where it's a timely matter, and it needs to be dealt with, and if we can't get the full committee together before, to get the chair to have the authority to talk to the attorney, is that, are you following?
Yep, I
Okay.
am. And I think, and Sharon, help me, I think we talked, I want to say we talked about, because we were looking at the word committee, and then I know that we talked about the chair, but that might have been in paragraph 3.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Sharon.
I don't think we were talking about the chair contacting the attorney, but that could fall under superintendent or designee, but I guess Nancy is correct. We could say that. I can't think off the top of my head what that occasion would be, but I'd be open to anyone suggesting a sentence. I also didn't get the comma or semicolon to make the correction on that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I do now remember Joanne's semicolon.
I do.
I definitely, I now do. All right, Meredith and then Jackie, and then Joe.
I wonder if it would if it would cover it, if in that, in the third paragraph, on the second sentence, if we said the superintendent or designee may also take action at the direction of the committee and/or chair, where then if there was a timely matter, the superintendent could reach out to just the chair or the committee, whatever is accessible. I don't know if that would make it
Okay.
more legal.
Jackie?
Well, the
Thank you.
committee, how I interpret that would be that it has to come to the committee, not like an email, but it has to come and be an agenda item. So I think there needs clarification there. And then as well, to layer up more, when it's not an initial request, but when it's an ongoing process that's happening with your legal team, and there's correspondence going back and forth, and does the school committee member need to continue to seek approval for correspondence with legal through that process? Or once they get the initial approval to respond on behalf of the school committee, do they have to come back every time they have to respond?
Good question. And I see Terry's hand, and Joe, you had yours up, so I'll take Joe and then Terry.
Well, this is why proposals come to the school committee as a group, because I think we have highlighted or unearthed some issues in the policy. It's akin to writing contract law. So first on the 2 points, I think Nancy is quite correct. There are going to be situations, someone files an unhappy citizen files a open meeting law violation. This happened within the year in the Falmouth School Committee. Someone alleged that they had discussion that was deliberation. That after the meeting, people talked a little bit, and that discussion was marked as deliberation. A complaint was filed with the Attorney General, and the Attorney General upheld the complaint and chastised the Falmouth School Committee for this. In any kind of these situations, you want to be able to act quickly, efficiently, and effectively. I would like to see that we have in here language that gives the chair more leeway in contacting an attorney. The third paragraph says really the attorney's in an emergency situation or in anything other than routine. The school committee as a group has to give permission either to the superintendent, the designee of the superintendent, or the chair. And I think the chair deserves a greater amount of leeway. And yes, we should be thinking about that when we're voting for who that chair would be. But give the chair the leeway to act on behalf of the school committee until the next committee meeting. At the same token, I would like to see that kind of privilege extended to the superintendent and or designee as well. And they should be able to act in concert on behalf of the committee as a whole until the next school committee meeting, whenever that might be, particularly if an emergency meeting or a quicker meeting can't be called. Then the fourth paragraph, it says many types of assistance are routine, and so you don't need the committee approval. And there's an ambiguity there, and I think it could be clarified in a sentence. I'm not going to try to propose it now, but it suggests at least that on routine matters, you don't need the committee approval. So any committee member potentially could call an attorney and ask for clarifying questions. Some of us might want to call an attorney next Tuesday after the Monday meeting to ask for questions. And it may only take 5 or 10 minutes, but attorneys, I think, still do what's called billable hours. Mm-hmm. At least in some of my divorces, when I called an attorney, a 5-minute conversation resulted in my being billed for an hour. So we should just clarify who gets to call the attorney. And I think we should have some language that says before a member of the school committee reaches out to the attorney, that it be done with the approval of the chair. So I'd like to amend this overall, and I don't want to do the language now. I think that can be worked out between now and the next meeting, to give the chair what I think is appropriate responsibility in speaking on behalf of the school committee in between meetings. Just as if a reporter has a question, if someone has a point to make, we would refer that questioner, that journalist, what have you, we would, or at least I would be very reluctant to answer a question. I would refer that person to the committee chair. In fact, which I have done, I believe others on the committee have as well.
Thank you. Terry?
Without getting deeper into the weeds, I think the third paragraph, and this goes back several years in my experience, and especially in the light of the fact we have a meeting every 2 weeks. It's not as if it's, the superintendent or designee will keep the committee and/or chair appraised of legal matters. The one thing that strikes me is a quick notice of an open meeting law violation, and we haven't had many, maybe 3 of those in my experience. That the superintendent's office usually is the first one to receive that information. That says it all. The superintendent makes a decision, contacts the chair, the superintendent calls the lawyer after consulting. That's what that statement is, without getting, secondly, a comment and disagreeing with Joe regarding, independent of this Monday meeting, I don't see any profit at all of 7 members of the school committee picking up the phone and calling the school committee's attorney. I think it should go through the chair and the superintendent. So I think it reads, to me, it reads the way it should read without any addition, that the superintendent has the, and going on in paragraph 4, many types of legal assistance are routine, and therefore phone calls are made and answered prior to any meeting regarding any school committee. So I think this is a very clean and straightforward coverage of how we would process.
Thank you, Terry. Jackie?
I agree with Terry that it definitely needs to be a clean, concise policy. But I actually have a perfect example of why it doesn't work exactly that way every time over the last week. And an answer had to be turned around quickly. And it was not an answer that the chair could answer. And it was not directed to the superintendent. And it was directed to a member of the school committee. And that's exactly why we have to have more clarification in this, because there was no answer. There's no policy that was like, what's the right protocol for this? So I think that we need some clarification where it says school system and be made by the committee. I think simply when you say made by the committee, there needs to be clarification, needs to be on the agenda or something like that when you're saying by the committee. I don't think it reads that you're assuming, I don't think it should read that you're assuming it's going to be at the meeting under a vote. And maybe that's what it has to be, by vote. Because that is actually how an open meeting law violation starts, is by vote of the committee for that person for the chair to respond to the violation. And what happens to a past chair who is still responding to an issue, and how to handle that. So I don't know if we want to just take this back to the policy subcommittee at this point and see if we can keep it clean and clear still, like Terry said, but try to talk about some of those things, and maybe we do need a little bit more clarification.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Joanne, did you have something?
No.
Yeah, and Terry, thank you for that, because I'm glad that you shared that, because I thought that made sense. And then, but I am aware of what you're speaking about, Jackie, and it was kind of caught between you and me.
It never went to him.
Right, yeah, it totally bypassed.
Well, only
because you
I
had
said
already,
that-
you were already in motion in
Yeah.
the situation, so you were already the contact person. So that is a point taken, that was an exception. All right, so how does, oh, Joe, go ahead.
Please read the third paragraph carefully, particularly the first sentence. It's the committee that can authorize communication with the attorney. It's the committee. So when you take the situation that Mr. Russell outlined, which I think is quite likely to occur and probably the most accurate situation, the information, the complaint comes to the superintendent's desk, and then the superintendent might wish to seek legal advice, call the attorney. In that scenario, the superintendent would be violating the policy. Third paragraph makes it very clear, even though it's in passive voice in the first sentence, that if you want to seek legal advice, that decision will be made by the committee. And I think that's wrong. I think it shackles us. I like the point Mr. Russell made about giving greater flexibility to the chair and to the superintendent, but to do so, you have to modify that third paragraph. I also don't want to see 7 people on Tuesday calling an attorney, so I think there should be more restrictive language added to the 4th paragraph, because it doesn't specify who gives permission and who doesn't. It just says specific committee approval is not required. Okay, committee approval is not required. Whose approval is required then? It would seem to me that means anyone who cares, anyone on the committee who cares to pick up the phone. And you might want to add some language there to be a little more restrictive and say the decision to contact an attorney should be made by the chair. So between now and the next meeting, could I recommend or ask the committee responsible for this work, take a look at file BDG, as other towns have written it, as maybe litigious towns have written it, and take a look and see what they have. How do they answer these issues? Who's allowed to contact an attorney? Does the superintendent or the chair have any leeway prior to or in advance of the school committee meeting? So between now and then, I don't think we should try to answer all the questions now or get into the specific language. I think it will bog us down. But the committee could take a look at that and come back with something more clear and more precise, so we know exactly what's being said. And I don't want a future school committee a couple of years from now when people have forgotten everything that we've said here, when most of us are not here anymore on a school committee. I don't want another school committee to misread this and misunderstand our intent, because what's been said today I like a lot, but the specific written language is sometimes at odds, and that needs to be reconciled.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Jackie?
I don't want to bog us down, and I certainly think maybe the legal team should be writing this policy. But after, I made it funny. After Joanne's semicolon, Joe, just before I go back to the policy sub with this, after the semicolon, it does say, however, when the superintendent or designee conclude that unusual types or amounts of professional legal service may be required, you are saying that he or she should come to the committee for that permission. If I want to clarify that. And right now we have, will advise the committee, and I had actually scratched in advise the chair, and then seek either initial or continuing authorization for service. So I think, I'm curious if you're thinking, if advising the chair in those unique short-term or, not a lot of time situations is adequate, or they have to wait until we approve it at our next school committee meeting to seek that legal advice, which I know we talked about that sometimes that's not realistic. So I'm trying to figure out how to suffice when and how they're able to and with whose permission. I guess my confusion is I can't go back to the policy subcommittee without fully understanding whose authority you're looking for.
Joe, would you like to respond?
You're muted.
Oh, yeah.
At that particular moment, it was very, very good that I was muted.
Joe?
Jackie, I just think the issues you're raising are complex enough so that we really would do better to start afresh at our next meeting with the concerns that we have raised here today, discussed by a committee who can then present us a document on which to vote. If it's just a matter of the small matters of grammar and so forth, we can just silently correct those later on. But things that are being said here are things of real substance. So I would like to take, to use a phrase that's being used a lot lately, I would like to take a little more time and make sure we do it right.
You didn't answer
And
my
Jackie, I'm sorry if
question.
that sounds like passing it off, but I just don't think we can wrestle all this down today.
I'll just pick myself.
Okay, so, it sounds to me, and Jackie, thank you for grabbing all those notes, and Sharon probably is grabbing them too. And I just want to say, Terry made a wonderful point that it always starts with the superintendent, and in that case, I think it reads beautifully. However, with this very recent situation, it was exceptional. And I do believe, in order to protect us and the chair, that we probably need a line or something that speaks to the exception. So for that reason, I would think we probably need to spend more time. Is that what everybody else? All right.
Yes.
I'm getting nods. All right. So we'll send this back, and just a couple little grammatical things, and then a line of some kind. So we'll work on that. All right, so this will go back then to the policy subcommittee, and I guess it will come back once again as a first read. It's now in competition. All right, so that'll come back on the 19th.
Madam
Oh,
Chair.
I'm sorry, Terry, yes.
Thank you. I think that's a wise decision. On the same topic, though, I think it's fair to say that whatever has surfaced with the coverage of our members and the superintendent, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
As a result, I think that's moot unless that becomes a school committee executive session conversation so that we have some knowledge base to say, I see your point. I don't see your point at all. It's ephemeral to me.
Okay, and point
I just
taken.
make that as a comment because I don't know what went on,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Okay. Point well taken. Jackie? Or do we just point well taken?
I think point's well taken, and
Okay.
we're going to work on the policy.
Okay. Perfect. All right, point well taken, Terry. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next item, under subcommittee reports, legislative liaison. As I shared last meeting, we do have the annual meeting of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees this weekend on Saturday. And as we all agreed, we're going to attend the morning session. There is the equity presentation that we're all going to go. And in the afternoon, at 1 o'clock, the annual meeting happens, of where I'm a delegate for the Monomoy, and part of my job as the delegate is to vote on the resolutions which are in your packet, and there are 10 of them. 3 of these have been before us, just for our own school committee, and my understanding, which I think I had shared in sending this out, but my understanding is this doesn't bind us, so just because we say yes or no, it doesn't bind us. As a delegate, what my job is to give authorization to MASC, the Association of School Committees, to act on these resolutions. Because they're looking to do some legislative work on a state level, and they can't do it without the delegates giving them authorization. So unless anybody is opposed, and this is just a report because I don't have a vote or anything here, unless anyone is opposed to any of these, I was just going to hear the statements that are made for each one, and some of them I'm going to certainly vote in favor of based on what we've done here. But unless, I was just going to open it up for discussion if anybody had any input that they wanted me to carry in as a delegate. Anybody? All right. Joe, Sharon, any comments?
No.
And I'll take this opportunity to tell you, I had a delegate training, and they have a fantastic electronic voting system, which is so cool, and I wish I could show it to all of you. But when I go in for the annual meeting, they're going to send me a link on my phone, and we're going to be in Zoom. And then when they give us the the go-ahead, the link is going to pop up, and I'm going to vote yes or no, and then it's going to be tabulated, and then the results will be up. It's so cool. And I was like, oh, why can't we just use that voting system? But, so I had that training last week, and it was really kind of cool to see what they've done. All right, any questions, comments? And make sure you have this, at least the morning session on your calendar for the presentation. So it's this Saturday. All right, that's my report for Legislative Liaison. We'll move into Superintendent's report.
I'll try to be quick here. So first in your packet, there's a sort of a program, two-sided, that I would like to just credit our Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, Mark Smith, put together the professional development program that our staff were in. So the students weren't in school on election day, but the staff had a professional development day, and this just kind of goes over the different offerings that were available. It was largely offerings to support our teachers teaching in this sort of new COVID online environment that we find ourselves. But I know Mark put a lot of time into organizing it, and I know that we have a number of our staff that led these sessions, and I'd just like to thank them for their support and putting that together. We are firmly into budget season right now, so we just prior to this meeting, we had a finance subcommittee meeting, and we're just talking about the different things that the principals have let us know that they would like to see in the budget, and I think budget this year is going to be very challenging. It's we don't know what school's going to look like come September. So at the moment we're putting together a budget that is based on a big assumption that we're going to be coming back and starting to return to normal, whatever normal actually looks like. So so we have some COVID contingencies that we have to prepare for in the budget. But those COVID contingencies that we have in place this year cost quite a bit. So it's unless there's additional funding coming from the state to run a significantly different educational program like we are this year, it's going to be a challenging budget season. Next, we will be communicating out to families in the upcoming couple weeks about the option to go reassess, do they want to be in person or distance learning for the second half of the school year, and we'll take their feedback and decide if we need to reorganize some of our teaching staff to make that happen. But again, we'll have the parents respond in that sort of late November, early December time frame, and then you can imagine if there's a significant shift that want to come back into in-person learning, it's going to be high school, middle school, and elementary schools sort of reworking the staffing. So it becomes a big logistical hurdle to do. But but that's our promise that we made to families that mid-year we would go reassess. Knock on wood, I think we're doing a great job so far that we have only had 3 positive cases of COVID in our schools to date this year. I kind of look at that. We've gotten November's case out of the way, so we'll be good the rest of the month. Sort of averaging one a month. So I am realistic that that if you look at the maps of COVID in the state itself, it has begun to get sort of more of a hot zone, sort of radiating out from Boston, and it keeps inching closer and closer and closer to the Cape each week. So the number of infections per capita that are happening just over the bridges is a lot more than what's happening here on the elbow of the Cape, but, but we know it's, we know it's coming, and we just have to be prepared. I was in a conversation with school superintendents, our Cape and Islands superintendent group, just sort of batting around, what do people think about as we're heading into the next couple weeks of winter sports. And I'll personally share here that, my concern is that, that I do worry that sports has the potential to go and take down the whole educational program. And I have been watching, ever since I dropped my son off at the Air Force Academy, I've been watching that as sort of a barometer of what's happening. And this past week, as it's gotten colder and those outdoor teams moved indoors to, to continue to practice and continue to have intramurals, the COVID rates spiked, and, things are locked down, and now sports are essentially canceled with the exception of football, and I kind of wonder if football will get canceled after Saturday's Air Force Army football game. And but I think we're seeing that, that I think a lot of the colleges are hitting that point of, they can't get the kids home for Thanksgiving vacation fast enough, and once they're home, we're likely going to be having them be remote. So it's starting to ramp up everywhere, and I think we're going to have to wrestle as school districts on what do we do with athletics. I know there was a petition that hit my inbox. I don't know if it hit yours yet, but it was a group of parents are sort of proactively, it wasn't our parents, it was a statewide petition, sort of proactively wanting to get in front and say, we want to have a winter season. And I think the petition was, don't cancel it, just put it in the spring. So we'll see, but it's crazy times. And you've seen the same thing just with hockey. There's been an issue with those hockey parents. But you've seen it with in the news with cases with hockey teams where where there's been COVID issues, and the governor has now come down with much more stringent guidelines when it comes to to masks and everything else. So so it's we're definitely in a season where things are ramping up, and knock on wood, so far we've only had 3. I thought the high school did a great job, and Joy was very helpful at helping get the communication out on this this week at the high school. Along that lines, the state has apparently is having a lot of a new rapid test. It's called the BitNax Now rapid test. I've put our district in, with interest in being, getting, our share of the 2 million tests that are supposed to come. It would allow us that if we have staff or students who can't get tested, or if we're seeing that there are lag times, and the lag times to get tested are starting to build, that we can administer a rapid test here that can go and actually have a result happen rapidly. But I think there's my understanding with this test, some of it is that it's a bit of experimental, so you have a lot of hoops that that we'll have to jump through as a district, and so we'll have to train some of our nursing staff to administer, and it's a nasal swab. You drop 6 drops of reagent, put it in fold the little cartridge, and a few minutes later you have a result. It's a simple, I think they were saying $180 one-time fee to have access to this, but there's some training and that's involved. But again, I think it would give us a resource, and for families who don't have access, it'll allow us to provide access. And in cases, I had a staff member who was being quarantined, wanted to get tested, and the wait time, they were waiting days, so by the time they were tested and they got the results, their 14-day quarantine was over, and so you want to see if we can go and help on that end. Let's see. I think that is everything I have on my list.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments? Sharon, Joe, questions, comments? All right, thank you. So let's see, moving into action items, we have done everything. We are, the approval of payment on prior year invoice. Oh, Michael? Yeah. I think.
Yes, you have in your packets the prior year invoice. I believe it was received, well, I don't know, there's some confusion as to when this is received, but it relates to the 2018 financial year for services with our Medicaid report. So we report to the state on expenses related to Medicaid. UMass Medical help administer that and then charge us back for it, and that's what this bill's for.
Okay. Questions or comments? Joe?
Of course, I'm in favor of approving the payment, but if any confusion can be clarified, I'd appreciate it. The service cost report has an invoice date of August 5th, 2019. There is a payment date of September 4th, 2019. We're going to approve the payment in November 2020. That seems not typical. I imagine UMass Medical is not going to go under as a result of delayed payment, but if any clarity can be given as to the cause of this unusual time delay, it would be useful, and then we can vote in favor of approving the payment, which we should do, of course.
So there's always a delay. There's always a delay in these invoices because of the process of submitting the Medicaid claim, and it's not until we get the results of that claim back that we are then invoiced. So there's always a delay anyway, and there's multiple billings every year. So so we've paid since receiving this, we've paid other bills. So I think what happens is, they see in our account we have a deficit, we're amount owed on our account, but they're still receiving money from us. So, and they're receiving more than $540. So, it's like it just never gets dealt with, because, if we just stop paying them, then we'd be more likely to hear a lot of concerns. But as we keep paying them for other bills, that one just gets kind of lost in the mix. I think that's what happens. That's what happened in this case.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Questions, comments? All right, can I have a motion then to approve this payment?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I move to approve the prior multi-year invoice, really long ago, invoice in the amounts of $540.65 payable to UMass Medical School.
Thank you.
As presented.
Thank you. A second? And Jackie seconded. Any discussion? All right, so we're going to vote for approval of this invoice, starting with Sharon.
Aye.
Joe?
Joe Osceola, aye.
Jackie?
Jackie Long, aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Joanne?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So this is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, presentation of warrants. They have made their way all the way around, and everybody is signing those. So that is happening as we speak. And now we move into our second public comment. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. Additional time at the discretion of the chair. Anybody from our public would like to speak? Yes, welcome, Mr. Gruska. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Charles Gruska, 6T Berry Ave, Harwich. I had the privilege of being the first member of the public to speak at the second public comment period, and looks like I'll have the privilege to be the last person to speak at the last second public comment period of the committee. I just want to clear up some things. First of all, the comments that were made that perhaps a public comment is a place for someone to rubber stamp, and there's been criticism, it sounds like, in the community, or people who tend to watch these committees, that an individual is a plant or a rubber stamp to the committee to approve what the positions of the committee. I just want to remind people that I have disagreed strongly with the committee in speaking at the second public comment period over the time it's been in existence. First time I did that was after the committee voted its support of the mask statement on racism and its own statement as a committee. I had a strong objection to some wording in both of those statements, and I made that known very clearly, I thought, at a second public comment period. I thought it was important for the committee to hear that. And I have spoken at second public comment period in disagreement with ending a second public comment period, seeing the discussion that it was going on among some of the members of the committee that seemed to indicate that was not something that they found it in their favor. So I just want to clarify the record that second public comment period has been used to strongly disagree with the school committee and its discussions and deliberations at times, and not strictly been a place for someone rubber stamps. Second, the comment that the second public comment period has hardly been utilized. I could utilize the second public comment period very frequently, because I sit through the entire meetings. There's a lot of thoughts that go through my mind, a lot of experiences I have that I feel like I could lend to the discussion. However, I've held back from doing that. I'm very conscious of the fact that I and maybe one other person are the only people who regularly attend school committee meetings in Monomoy. That's different from my experience that I've had in other places, but that's been the experience here. So I've deliberately held back, not wanting to look like an ex officio member of the school committee who takes that role and uses this as a platform to speak and be publicly seen. And so I've consciously done that and said to myself, you know, I will speak if there's something really important that's come up that I think, you know, should be heard before people leave. Also, I've been more hesitant recently, even in speaking at the first public comment period. Last time I spoke at second public comment period, it was on discussion about second public comment, and I wanted to review what was said before writing an email out with my thoughts to the school committee. So I reviewed the meeting as was recorded on local public access, and what I noticed was I get a different view of what I was seeing when I was speaking, and I was actually having a view of some of the school committee members as I was speaking, watching them shuffle papers, go through papers, packing up, getting ready to leave. And when I saw that, clearly the message to me was no sense speaking because people aren't listening. Because again, tone of voice and body language was telling me it's time to get out of here. It's been a long night. And you know, I didn't know that I was being heard by some members of the committee. And that caused me to hold back after that, speaking at second public comment, even held me back tonight. I had something to share totally unrelated to this topic at first public comment period, and I held myself back. I'm very conscious of the fact that, you know, I seem to be the only one of two members of the public that follow the desires of the committee to take an active interest in the work of the committee and be knowledgeable about that and be a ready person to speak on that behalf. I know when I first spoke at public comment, when I moved into town and started attending meetings, it was because I had some extremely positive and unique experiences as a volunteer in the schools. And I thought that I wanted to share that with the committee, and I thought maybe the committee didn't hear that enough from the public, because I know that usually the public or anyone is quick with the negative, and you hear the negative and you do so many things well and you don't hear that. So I was extremely nervous, even though I have a long history of speaking publicly and doing many public speaking events. I was really nervous getting up to speak to school committee the first few times, but I just felt so strongly and was so passionate about some positive things that I observed firsthand as someone who had a 34-year career in education and a lot of experience there that I thought was unique to Monomoy. And I still feel that way about many things, and so I like to express that, but I don't want to be seen as a rubber stamp of the school committee when I do that. I guess the bottom line of what I'm saying is that school committee has made me feel like pulling back from expressing comment publicly. And I have a busy agenda even though I'm a retiree. And I don't want to have to sit down and write emails about everything going through my mind to communicate with the committee. But if I had 3 minutes at a meeting to share some thoughts and thought people were interested in hearing that, and that's a nice format. But after you sit through the same meeting that you people sit through, and you know how you feel sitting through that, and I've heard the statement so often made, every minute matters. It just, it would be nice to just quickly be able to say that. And I thank you, Madam Chair, because you've let me extend the time probably tonight already. Again, feeling emotional and hard to get my thoughts together. But I thought it was important for you to have feedback. I think it's important if people do speak to make eye contact with them and at least give a sense of interest. I think it is important to have a place for the public to communicate and for you to want to desire that. And I feel a bit discouraged that I've gotten a different kind of message in recent weeks and months from the school committee. And but you do great work and keep up that great work. And thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to share my comments in a public forum with you when I know you don't have to do that by mass policy. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Charles. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
And
Second.
Sharon seconded, Nancy made the motion. So we're going to do a roll call vote starting in the Zoom room. Sharon?
Aye.
Joe?
Joe Osceola, aye to adjourn.
Thank you. Jackie?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Joanne?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So we will adjourn this meeting at 8:09.